Hello and welcome back to the fourth video in our musical pitch series. This actual series is part of a bigger series, which is the fundamentals of music that we need to understand as worship leaders, as people who lead others in song, whether it's in church or not. And today we're going to be talking about chords and their structure. And whether you're playing an instrument that actually reads the chords on the chart, or singing where you're usually focused on a single melodic line or harmonic line, this will be beneficial to you to understand what's actually happening in your music, because these chords are really the building blocks that our melodic lines and our harmonic lines especially are built on top of. So, we're talking about musical pitch in this series, and we want to know what's the point of that. Why do we talk about musical pitch? And that's because musical pitches are not absolute. They're defined by their relationship to one another. We've been talking about that from the beginning of this series when we talked about the fact that all of these notes that we have, we actually define the distance in between them as really the defining characteristic of a piece of music. More so even than which note or key on the keyboard you hit or string on the guitar that you pluck or specific pitch that you sing. What matters is that when you go from one pitch to the next pitch, it's the right distance. And so that's really how musical pitches are defined. That's really how our songs and music is defined. And why should we care about how those things exist and how those things work together? That's because understanding our music and our songs will allow us to better lead others rather than our songs leading us. I'm certain we've all experienced it, that song that we've just been working on, we just don't quite have it all the way. We have it most of the way. So we're plastered to our chord chart to make sure we're going to play the next chord right, or we're glued to the lyric screen to make sure we're going to sing the next lyric right, or really thinking in our head really, really hard about a rhythm or a pitch or an interval or something, and we have to work so hard at this. And at that moment, our song is really leading us. We can't lead others in our songs when we're doing that. That's why we need to care. All right, so let's talk about types of chords. We're not going to be talking about every type of chord that exists in this video. This is a fundamentals video. So this is the types of chords that you need to know, but there's more than one kind, and I just want you to know that they exist and what they are. So the first kind is a triad. All right, that's the kind that we're going to talk about today. Triads come in 4 flavors, if you will: major, and minor, diminished, and augmented. And we will go over all of those. We'll get a chance to hear all of those in a moment. The other kind is 7th chords, and you will see 7th chords notated in your music. 7th chords come in more flavors because there's more pitches involved in them. They come in major, major minor, minor, half diminished, augmented, and also diminished, which is not listed here, a fully diminished 7th chord. And you will see those notated in your music as well. And those aren't critical for our success. Those 7th chords add additional flavor, they add additional style and flair to what we're doing. But what you'll find is that your music in its core, the way that it's defined, is defined by these triads. 7th chords are actually built on top of an existing triad. So we're not going to talk about them in this particular video. So let's talk about how you might build a triad. So a triad, as its name suggests, is made up of 3 pitches, and that's why it's that building block. 2 pitches is just an interval. We already went over intervals in the first video. When you add a 3rd pitch, you have some sort of compounding relationship, and that gives us a chord, in this case, a triad. So the first kind of triad that we're going to talk about, and the most common one, is a major triad. And I'm going to move over to the keyboard here, and you can see this on the screen also. What you have in a major triad is first off, you have whatever your root pitch is how your chord gets its name. So we're going to use the key of C as our starting example, as we have been this whole time, because C uses these white keys in front of us. It's very easy to see when we've made an adjustment. So if we use the C as our first pitch, then this is officially a C chord. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to build a major 3rd on top of that, and that's 4 half steps up from the C. So if I've got my C and I go 4 half steps up, I have my major third interval. Those intervals we talked about, 4 half steps. All right? The next thing you need to build on top of it is a perfect fifth. And the perfect fifth is 7 half steps up. So same thing again. I've got my C. And I have my perfect fifth. Okay? And so when I have my major third and my perfect fifth, and I have them at the same time, I get a major triad, a major chord. So this is a C major. And just as in all of our rest of our music, if you change octaves, and I play this C down here, it's still to the left of 2 black keys. This one's still to the left of 2 black keys. This one's still to the left of 2 black keys. I'm playing still a C chord. I'm playing it in more than 1 octave, but it's the same 3 pitches. It's the same 3 pitches in 2 octaves, okay? And that gets you a major chord. So next we're going to move on to our minor chord. Now, if you played a major chord and you wanted to make that chord minor, a good way to talk about that is to say you lower the third right here by a half step. So, a minor triad is a minor third, which is 1, 2, 3 half steps up from your original pitch, your C, and then still a perfect fifth, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps up, and you get that minor sadness, that feeling that you love from things like Phantom of the Opera and whatever else you like to watch that has dark, moody music in it. All right? So that's a minor chord. That's a minor triad. The next kind of triad we have is called a diminished triad. And so a minor triad takes that major third and turns it minor. And a diminished triad, in addition to that, takes our perfect fifth and turns it diminished. And so when you put that minor third, that's 3 half steps, and a diminished fifth, that's 6 half steps, together over a single, over a shared pitch, you get this sound. And that's a diminished chord. Now there's another kind of triad that I have actually never seen in music at the church, but it exists and you should know about it. It's called an augmented triad. So if we go back to our major triad, an augmented triad keeps your major third, but adds an augmented fifth instead of a perfect fifth. So that's a half step up. And that's called an augmented fifth. And so the perfect fifth was 7 half steps. This is 8 half steps up from the C. And so then we have this. And that is an augmented triad. Now, I've never seen that in our music here at the church, and you're about to find out why, because what we're going to talk about here coming next is that there is a pattern in which these chords appear in a major key or in a major scale. And here is that pattern. So within a major scale, we have 7 pitches, and then when we get to the 8th pitch, it's the same as the first pitch, but it's an octave up. So we really have 7 pitches. And that's 7 different places with which we can start a chord if we're staying within the confines of our key, which we talked about in our previous video. If we stay in the confines of the pitches that are in our key and we play triads based on whatever pitches are available to us, whatever third and whatever fifth can be built on top of whichever pitch we started on, whether it's a major, minor, third, or a diminished, perfect, or augmented fifth, we come up with this pattern of chords. And there are many, many people who, when they play music, do not look at letters anymore for their music. They simply look at these numbers, and they can see that relationship, and then they just pick a starting pitch, and they know how to play within that key. And that's called the Nashville number system. It's a very common thing for studio musicians and recording artists. It makes them faster It makes it faster for them to be able to get in and do what they need to do and understand their music quickly. And it can be beneficial to us too. It does not have to be restricted to the professionals. They don't get to have all the fun. So here's how that looks. That starts with a 1, which is a major chord. And you saw that when I played that C major chord just now. It was all white keys, which meant it was all within the key of C. And we'll go through this in just a second, and you'll be able to see this all on the piano. If you start up building a triad from the second pitch in your scale, it's a minor chord. If you start from the third pitch in the scale, it's a minor chord. If you start from the fourth pitch in the scale, it's a major chord. The fifth pitch, also a major chord. The sixth pitch, a minor chord. And the seventh pitch, you get a diminished chord. If you look at this, you'll notice that there is no augmented chord that naturally appears within the confines of a key. And that's why I've never seen one here in church music, because we often, our music that we pick often stays within the confines of a key. And so let's just go look at this. We're going to go look at this on our keyboard. We're going to look at this in the key of C, and we're going to see if this is true, and then we'll realize how that works. Okay, so here I am at my keyboard, and I'm in my key of C, and I'm just going to start on my 1, which is a C, okay? And I need a third, so 4 half steps is a major third, 3 half steps is a minor third. The minor third's not in the key of C, because it's not a white key. The major third is. It's on a white key. Then I've got my fifth, the diminished fifth, and the augmented fifth. Neither of those are in my key, so there I am. Only the perfect fifth is there, and I have a major chord. That works out great. Next up, I have my second pitch. So let's see here. I have a third here. My major third would be 4 pitches. That puts me on a black key. That's not in my key. It's not in the scale. A minor third, though, 1, 2, 3, is absolutely in my scale. And then my perfect fifth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I have a minor chord right there, right? There it is. There's that minor sound. Let's go on to the 3. There it is. That's a minor again. You'll see I'm on all white keys. I started on the E, which is the third pitch of my scale. I built a third on top of it, and then I built a fifth on top of that. And it happened to be a minor third and a perfect fifth, and then I could do the same thing for my fourth pitch. And you can hear it, right? You start being able to just hear that. You don't even need to look and count. You can just hear that major chord on my fourth pitch, on my fifth pitch. There it is again, that major chord, just like we said it would be. Here's our sixth pitch. Boom, found them. Then my seventh. And look at that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. We've got that diminished chord, and then we're back to a 1 suddenly. Boom. Everything we needed. It's all right there. And it happens like that in every key. If I go, let me just start. We'll pick any key I want, right? I'm not going to be able to do this with both hands, picking any random key, but let's start on a black key just for giggles. Okay, so I remember my scale pattern is whole, half, whole, half, right? So there it was. So my starting pitch, what is this? C, D, E, F, G, sharp. So this is a G sharp. Whole, half, whole, half. There it is. Okay, great. So whole, half, whole. There's my major, right? So then I move up to the next pitch. There's my minor key, right? So whole, half, whole. So that's going to go here, here, here. There's my third, it's minor. Here's my 4. There's my 5. Sorry. Here comes the 6. Sorry. Trying to remember what's all is in the key here. whole, 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 half, whole. There it is. There it is. Okay, we found them all. I have to think about that, but remember, we have the tools to think about those things and to find them because we learned what our scale patterns are. But it happened again, right? We had major, we had minor, we had minor, we had major, we had major, we had minor, we had diminished, and then we had major again, okay? It happens just like that every single time. Why? Like, why do we care, right? How can this idea of this relationship from one chord to another and the relationships within a chord in any way help us to understand our music better, right? Because, good job, Aaron, you told me how to build this obscure major chord, but like, so, right? So let's talk about that, and let's listen to an example, okay? I'm gonna use this example from a song we haven't sung in a while, but we used to sing all the time. It's Yes, I Will, okay? And Yes, I Will has the following pattern of chords. It has a 4, and you'll notice that here's the 4, but I'm playing them in a odd hand position, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's that 4. I'm playing them in some odd hand positions because I'm not a very good keyboardist, and that will allow me to play a little faster, okay? So please bear with me if you're looking at the keyboard here. So it starts with a 4, and then it goes to a 1, and then it goes to a 5, and then it goes to a 6. And it does that all the way through, right? I count on... Man, that was terrible. I count on one thing. I count on one thing. So first off, I just had a really hard time finding my starting pitch, right? I haven't sung this song in a while. I didn't really prepare to use this song as the example. But what I can do is, in my chord here, here's my 4. I count on one thing. That 4 chord, one of the pitches of that chord is where my melody line starts. Did you hear that? I count on one thing. So if we have spent time learning about these chords and listening to them on purpose, what we'll start to find is we can find our starting pitches easier because we have references going on, right? And that's kind of part of the reason why I sat there and played through those chords a couple times, because I was trying to get my mind to connect and find that reference. I count on one thing. There it is, and I find it, right? As I go from that 4 to the 1. And that works in any key. So let me go to another key, right? I'm going to use the key of G, another key that's easy for me to play. You can pick whatever keys you like as you work through this. Right, so that's how it opens up. I count on one thing. There it is. I can find it in the same exact way that I just found it in the key of C. I can find it in the key of G. Now, should I sing that in the key of G way up there, right? I count on one. I shouldn't do that, right? Obviously, I shouldn't do that, but as I'm going through looking for different places... there's an octave. I count on one thing. Now I found where I should be singing. I found where it fits my vocal range, and I can keep moving forward with that. And obviously I'm playing these chords in a way that makes it so I don't have to move my hands so much, but you could be doing the same thing, finding them out. So there's my 4 to 1 to 5 to 6, 4 to 1, and you can do it that way. I count on one thing, right? You can find those same things. You can find them whatever key you're in. That's super helpful. Or you can maybe find where you are in a song without necessarily needing to have a whole bunch of additional information. Sometimes we can get lost in a song as we're singing or playing. You're drumming along, and you're like, uh-oh, I can't hear the singers. Something else got louder in my ears, right? Where am I? And you can hear the chord changes because you've gotten used to thinking about their relationships, right? Because whether I'm playing it this way or whether I'm playing it this way, which again I'm not as good at, but you still can hear that same thing going on, right? Because it's the same group of pitches, because it has similar motion to it when you change from one chord to another. That's going to help you better understand your music. It's going to help you better understand what you're about to do. Guitar player, that's going to help you just know where to go. Maybe you're a guitar player who uses a capo. I use a capo. That means you can learn just a handful of keys, and you can learn which things are the 1, 4, 5, and the 2, 3, and 6, and you can just move along, right? That means as a pianist, you can learn things like this hand position that I use, which I'm not a pianist. This is not my primary instrument. I'm not trying to make great pianists out of us. I'm trying to make people who better understand their music and what they're doing. I'm trying to help us all become better song leaders rather than us all being led by our songs. So that is a real good listening example of how this might help you. But what can you do to practice, right? What can you do to practice and to exercise this understanding, right? Because we have understanding, but we need to study to show ourselves approved in always being ready to give an account for the gospel. We also need to study to show ourselves approved and be ready to give an account of our music in a real practical sense for us to be able to lead worship well. So the first thing you can do, you can bang out some chords on a keyboard, right? You just saw me doing some of that, right? I'm not a real keyboardist, but I was able to find my 4 in here and find my 1, and then go find my 5 from there, and my 6, and move on and try different things. Bang out some chords on a keyboard. Listen to what you sing as you bang out that chord on a keyboard. You'll more than likely find, if you're a singer, that that's the pitch I sing, right? If you're a guitar player and you're working on a lead line, listen to those chords and go, oh yeah, my lead line uses this pitch to this pitch to this pitch, which this pitch is in the chord, maybe this pitch isn't, but then this pitch is back in it. And you can find those patterns, you can hear those things. So if you're a pianist, please bang out chords on your keyboard, because I need you to be able to play chords. It's like the minimum requirement for being on the team, right? If you're a drummer, even if you're a drummer, bang out some chords on a keyboard. Get used to listening to what it sounds like to move from a 1 to a 4, to move from a 1 to a 6, to move from a 4 to a 5, right? Whatever that is. Listen to that. The next thing you can do is you can write in the numbers on your music, right? So many of us are sitting there looking at our music. We see these little chords above the lyrics that we're using, right? Or maybe we're using a lead sheet. We see pitches on the lead sheet for whatever the vocal line is, but we still see chords across the top. We're not thinking about that relationship. That's a G moving to an A. Well, that's probably a 4 and 5 somewhere, but how, right? But maybe that's not a 4 and 5, whatever that is. So when you're sitting there, you can write in some numbers. You can go, okay, well, our charts all tell us what keys we're in. This chart says I'm in the key of G, so I know G is 1. And then I can just count up. G is 1, A is 2, B is 3, C is 4, D is 5, E is 6, F is 7, and then back to G is 1. And there's the F is actually an F sharp. But you know what? You don't actually need to know that, because you'll just see the F appear if you see it anywhere, and you'll go, it says F in it, so it must be an F. It must be my 7. And you can kind of figure those things out without having to know that it's an F sharp. You can still be able to use that. But then with those numbers in there, you can go, oh, look at this repeating pattern. Look at how this constantly goes from a 4 to a 1, or a 5 to a 1. We go from 5 to 1 all the time. And this one's free. This one's fun. 5 has that 7 that makes us want to go back to our 1. And a lot of times we'll have 5 7s. which creates this sound. And it makes that nice resolution. You get used to listening to that 5. And coming back to 1 and how that feels, because it feels just like that. It has that same feeling of resolving in every key. And you'll see when you go from a 5 to 1, you go, I should feel resolution there, because I know what that's like, right? I can see where I go from a 5 to a 4. I'm not going to feel resolution there. I'm not going to have that good, I'm not going to have that feeling. I'm going to go from 5 to a 4. 5 to a 4 almost sounds like a question. Hey, what's up? And you're like, everything's good, man. What's up with you, right? You have that musical conversation, and you can see that conversation happening on your chart. The next thing that you can do is you can practice singing or playing the same song in different keys. Now that maybe you are a singer who just dabbles in a little guitar or dabbles in a little keyboard, right? Which is a great thing to do. It'll help you. Maybe you're a guitar player who dabbles in a little vocalist or who dabbles in a little keyboard, right? Whatever you are, if you just do a little bit of dabbling in some other area besides your own, practice doing those things in different keys in those different areas, because what you'll find is that just helps you to get used to listening. It helps you to have that better and deeper understanding of what it is that you're about to do as a musician. You're a vocalist, you're an instrumentalist, you're a musician, right? Your voice is your instrument, your guitar is your instrument. You're a musician, so practice that variety, practice stretching your boundaries. If you're a drummer, pick up a pitched instrument, just a little bit of one, and just practice a little bit. Push yourself there too. You will be a better musician overall for pushing yourself outside of your boundaries. That's just a normal fact of growing, right? That's all that we have for chords and their structure, and that's actually all that we have for the general purpose part of our musical pitch. As far as you and your understanding, if you take these 4 areas of musical pitch and you start thinking on them and putting them into practice and challenging yourself to stretch utilizing these, do you need to be able to play every song in every key? No. That's ludicrous. What an absurd expectation on somebody, right? Do you need to be able to sing every song in every key? No. Your vocal range simply will not allow it. That's ridiculous, right? But by stretching yourself and by practicing pushing yourself outside of your boundaries and outside of your current comfort zones, you'll find you'll have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're doing, and you'll be able to maybe learn a new song faster, right? Because you understand how these interactions work. Or you'll be able to better lead people because these interactions are so natural and second nature to you that you don't have to think about them anymore. And now you could think about, Steven sitting in the front row and go, oh, I really want Steven to sing with me. I'm going to reach out to Steven with my body language in some way because I'm free enough to do that. I understand my music well enough to not be chained by it, right? Music should be freeing. There will be one more video in this musical pitch thing. It is primarily for those of you who are going to lead a rehearsal. This is ways that you can identify areas of challenge for musical pitch within your group that is practicing, help find the individual problems and help individuals work through those with group exercises. So please come back for that one. That'll be the last piece of our puzzle for musical pitch. Thank you so much.